Welcome to Echo Forge, dark fantasy and sci-fi stories from the edges of forgotten worlds. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next vision. Now, let's step through the gate.
Dangerous warmth. Lira's alarm chimed at exactly 6 a.m. station standard. She snapped awake on the first tone, as always. No snooze, no drift. Her people weren't built for lingering. They'd evolved under a thinner gravity well, in air that bit the lungs and made every breath a small act of defiance. You moved, or you froze. You decided, or you died. She rolled out of her bunk in one smooth motion and landed with a soft thud on the deck. Artificial gravity dragged her down a little more than she liked. The station ran at a setting closer to human standard. After 6 months, the extra weight still felt like someone had draped a damp blanket over her muscles. Her bluish skin caught the light as she dressed, the gentle purple undertone showing along the tendons in her forearms. She clipped her security badge to her chest, holstered her sidearm, checked the charge with the same unconscious efficiency she used to breathe. By 6:10, she was out the door, boots thudding down the corridor in a steady rhythm. Station K-17 wasn't special. It was a mid-tier transit hub in the outer line, orbiting a gas giant that nobody bothered to name beyond the catalogue designation. It had a gambling deck, a trade deck, 2 docks for freighters, 1 for patrol craft, and 1 for whatever military ship needed a quiet corner away from proper politics. It creaked when the artificial gravity shifted. It smelled faintly of coolant and fried protein, and Lira knew every centimetre of it, every hatch, every maintenance corridor, every blind corner where someone might think they could jump a drunk trader for a fast credit. She walked her route like she always did, nodded to the Trivan merchants setting up their booth on Deck 3, gave the glowering insectoid quartermaster on Deck 2 a polite morning in Galactic Common, and got a series of irritated clicks in response. Stepped aside for a pair of scaly, hooded diplomats from the Sen Coalition as they glided past with the sort of posture that said they'd never worked a real day in their lives. Nothing out of place, nothing that tripped her instincts. Good. By 7 a.m., the patrol rotation was logged, the overnight reports cleared, and her immediate superior had waved her off with a bored, "Try not to scare the tourists, Lira." She almost smiled. Almost. "Understood, sir," she said, and headed for the gym. The gym was where she did her real work, not the security patrols. That was just procedure. The gym was where she fought the station's gravity, centimetre by centimetre, trying to keep her low-world muscles from softening into something slow and complacent. She keyed the door and stepped inside. The air hit her first, recycled, slightly humid, carrying the generic smell of exertion. A row of treadmills along the far wall, a scatter of resistance rigs closer in, a grav sim cage in the corner for species that needed different loads, and, new today, something very large and very out of place. He was on the bench press in the free weights section. For a moment she thought he might be one of her people, maybe from a high-gravity enclave or a different gen line. He had the same general outline, 2 arms, 2 legs, bipedal stance. But the proportions were wrong. He was dense, heavy. The way his muscles bunched and moved under his shirt said his bones had grown up under something more brutal than this station's comfortable 1G. He was currently abusing the bench press. The weight on the bar was ridiculous. Station-issued equipment wasn't really meant for it. Every time he pushed the bar up, the frame creaked in protest, like an old ship under stress. "Come on, sweetheart," he muttered to the bar. "1 more set, and I'll even buy you dinner." Lira blinked. The bar, being a bar, declined to respond. He racked the weight with a clank, sat up in one smooth movement, and wiped sweat from his forehead with the towel around his neck. That's when he noticed her. "Oh," he said, "we've got an audience. Great. Now the romance is ruined. His accent was different, familiar in a way she couldn't immediately place. Galactic common, but with the vowels bent sideways, consonants softened. His skin was tan, his hair short and slightly tousled, as if gravity wasn't quite enough to convince it to behave. His eyes were a piercing grey that flicked over her in one quick, assessing pass. "Let me guess," he said. "I'm about to get yelled at." She frowned. "For what?" He gestured at the bar behind him. "For abusing station property, overloading the equipment, violating some subsection of some regulation that I absolutely didn't read when I signed in." "Technically," she said, "the posted limit is 40 kilos less than what you were just lifting." He clicked his tongue. "Knew it." "You'll warp the frame." He glanced back at the equipment. On the bright side, that would make it an engineering problem. I like engineering problems. Lira folded her arms. "I'm sure the maintenance crew will be delighted to hear that." He grinned then, a flash of teeth and mischief. "Most people aren't delighted to hear anything before their first coffee. You security?" She touched the badge at her chest. "Yes." "You got a name, security?" "Officer Lira Teth." "Jax," he said. "Just Jax. Engineer. Occasional poor life decision generator." Her brow smoothed a fraction. "You're the new systems engineer assigned to K-17? "That's me. Congratulations. You've upgraded from creaky old station to creaky old station with a mechanic who does his best." Lira considered him. "Humanoid. Higher bone density. Comfortable at this gravity level. Human, I assume." He gave her an odd look. "That's a very medical way to say, hey, you're tall. Is it inaccurate?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Human enough," he said. "Mostly. Depends who you ask." She tilted her head. "Is that supposed to be an answer?" "It's definitely supposed to be something," he said, hopping off the bench. "You here to work out, or just supervise my deeply irresponsible use of station property?" Her mouth twitched. She wasn't sure whether it was irritation or amusement. "To train," she said. "I don't supervise gyms. I supervise safety." "Well then," Jack said, sweeping an arm toward the treadmills with theatrical flourish. "By all means. Come help me make poor choices with cardio." He was annoyingly easy to talk to. That was Lira's first clear conclusion after 3 days of coincidentally overlapping gym schedules. He always had something to say. A quip, a joke, an offhand remark that twisted the situation sideways and made it seem less heavy. The station's little dramas, dock disputes, mild smuggling, drunken brawls, rolled off her shoulders in the gym, and Jack seemed determined to add a commentary track to all of it. "So you stunned him because he tried to bite you?" he asked one morning between sets. "He was attempting to bite my arm off," Lira corrected, pushing herself through another set of pull-ups. Sweat slicked along the slope of her shoulders, catching the gym's dull light on bluish skin. "There is a difference." "Semantics," Jack said, loading more weight onto his bar. "Personally, I think once teeth are involved, all bets are off." "You bite people?" "Only on request," he said. She nearly missed her grip. "What?" "Relax," he added quickly, laughing. "Joke. Mostly. One of my exes liked... Actually, you know what? Never mind. This is not conversation for 6 in the morning." Lira dropped to the floor and gave him a look that was half exasperation, half something else she did not care to examine too closely. He was attractive, objectively. His species, baseline human, was physically robust, adapted to heavier gravity than her own people. The extra mass wasn't just bulk, it was functional. Muscle laid over bone in efficient lines. He moved like he knew how to use every centimeter of it. Lira had always considered humans vaguely fragile, thin-skinned, easily bruised, prone to breaking in low-quality environments. Jax did not fit that impression at all. He also never shut up. "So," he said, starting his lift, "Officer Lira Teth, tell me about your deeply respectable life choices. How'd you end up babysitting a bucket of bolts in the middle of nowhere?" "It's an assignment," she said. "I applied. I was accepted. I serve my term. Then I move on." Spoken like someone reading off the recruitment brochure. She shrugged. "It's honest work. I keep people safe. It suits me." "So you're the serious one?" "Yes. And I'm the idiot." She considered. "Yes." He laughed, not offended in the slightest. "Good. Glad we've established roles. Takes the pressure off. Tell me about your home world." She hesitated. "Thin gravity," she said at last. "Cold. Sky so clear you can see the galaxy at night like a river. My people build into the rock. We don't waste anything. We don't talk this much." "Ouch," Jack said. "Harsh but fair. You got oceans?" "Small seas. Frozen for most of the year." "Ah," explains the personality. "Excuse me?" "Dry," he said. "Very dry." She rolled her eyes and stretched out her shoulders. "You ask many questions." "Occupational hazard," he said. "Engineering is just asking the universe questions and then getting electrocuted by the answers." "Is that why your hair does that?" she asked, before she could stop herself. He reached up, patting his tousled head. "Rude. This is carefully curated chaos. Looks like a failed containment field." "Hurtful," he said, but he was grinning again. "All right, your turn to interrogate me. Fair's fair." She took a breath. "Where are you from, Jax?" "Exactly?" His arms paused mid-rack. It was subtle. If she hadn't been watching his movement patterns for days now, she might have missed it. Then the easy grin slid back into place like a mask. "Here and there," he said lightly. "Out on the rim, mostly. Been station hopping since I was old enough to override an airlock." "That's not an answer." "It's an answer-adjacent collection of words," he said, "which is honestly the best you're going to get before I've had breakfast." "Your accent is not rim standard." "Wow," he said. "You catalog everybody's vowels or just mine?" "Yours are noisy." "Flattered," he said. "Seriously, though, it's just complicated. I'm from a place where people are very boring about borders and who's allowed to do what. I got tired of it. Now I fix things here. End of story." Lyra's jaw tightened. Something in his tone rang false. Not exactly a lie, but a careful omission. "Your people," she pressed. "Humans?" He swiped his towel over his face. "Human enough," he repeated. "Look, Lira, if I start explaining, we're going to need a projector, 3 holomaps, and a very patient lawyer. Let's just say my home doesn't like to get involved." "With what?" "Anything," he said. "Or anyone. Present company accepted, obviously." "You are not very good at giving straight answers." "On the contrary," he said, "my answers are extremely straight. They just do not go in the direction you want." She glared at him. He gave her the exact same infuriatingly harmless grin he gave everyone else. It should not have made her chest feel light. The attack came 2 weeks later. It began with a flicker. Lira was halfway through her mid-shift patrol, crossing the observation gallery that looked out over the gas giant's churning bands, when the lights blinked. Just a quick dimming, down, up again, slightly off color. She paused. Her hand went to her comm. "Control, this is Officer Teth. Power fluctuation on Deck 5, Section C, time-stamped." The lights died. Emergency strips snapped on a second later, painting the corridor in harsh red lines. The floor vibrated under her boots, a low, unsettling thrum. "What was that?" someone further down the hall called. Lira didn't answer. Her comm crackled. "All security personnel. Repeat, all security. This is Control. We've got unregistered contacts inbound. Vector 37 Mark II. Possible boarding action. This is not a drill. I say again, this is not..." The transmission cut to static. Lira was already moving. She hit the stairwell at a sprint, taking the steps 2 at a time, despite the artificial gravity dragging at her legs. Red light strobed. Sirens began to wail, first one, then another, until the whole station howled like a wounded animal. On deck 3, the doors to the gym slid open in front of her. Jax nearly ran into her. He was halfway to the corridor, hair damp with sweat, shirt clinging to his chest. He skidded to a stop, grabbed the doorway with one hand, and steadied both of them. "Wow," he said breathlessly. "If you wanted to sweep me off my feet, you could have just—" "Unregistered contacts inbound," Lira snapped. "Station control suspects boarding. Get to your duty station." He looked up at the red lights, the flashing evacuation signs, the streaming crew. "Nah," he said. She stared at him. "Excuse me?" "I mean, I can go hide in engineering until somebody blows a hole in the core," he said. "Or I can go try to stop the somebody from blowing a hole in the core. One of those options sounds less boring." "Jax!" "Look, I'm a systems engineer," he said, already moving to fall in step beside her. "And whoever's boarding us just messed with our power grid and comms. That means they've either got someone very smart on their side, or they're lucky. I don't like leaving that kind of thing unanswered." "This is not optional." "Nothing is optional," he said cheerfully. "It's just a matter of how dramatic the consequences are." She resisted the urge to physically throw him into the gym and lock the door. He'd probably find a way out anyway. "Fine," she said. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say." "Sure," he said, "unless I have a better idea." "That is not better." "Wait until you hear it." The first explosion hit Dock 1. Lira felt it in her teeth, a hollow thud, a grinding wrench through the structure, followed by the screaming of the environmental sensors kicking into overdrive. "Dock 1 breach," a mechanical voice announced over the emergency channel. "Seal protocols active. Atmosphere containment engaged." Lira's comm crackled again, half jammed. "All units to Dock 2 and 3. Repeat, unauthorized access." "Dock 1 is gone," Jax said beside her, eyes distant in that way that meant he was listening to something she couldn't hear. "Outer ring sealed. They'll move to secondary entry points. If I were them, I'd hit Dock 3 next, cut power to the ring, and—" "Don't finish that sentence," Lira said. "Why not?" "Because I don't want you giving them ideas." He snorted. Pretty sure they brought their own. They rounded the corner onto a main thoroughfare. Chaos. Civilians jammed the corridor, some running for the inner decks, others frozen in place. A group of Sen coalition diplomats chittered into their wrist comms. A pair of Trivan traders hauled crates toward the emergency bulkheads, trying to save what they could. In the center of it all, a trio of station security officers tried to direct traffic, their voices swallowed by the alarm sirens. Lira tapped her badge to open the override channel. "Everyone clear this corridor," she barked, voice cutting through the noise. "Inner decks only. Move, move, move." Her people knew her. They moved. The crowd began to flow, reluctant but obeying the authority in her tone. Lira helped shove a stalled hovercart out of the way. Jax grabbed the opposite side without being asked, muscles flexing as they rammed it against the wall. "You always this popular?" he asked, slightly breathless. "They know I carry a stun baton." "Hot," he said. She didn't answer. She might have smiled, but the station shook again, violently enough that the emergency strips flickered. "Okay," Jax said. "That wasn't Dock 3. "Where?" "Somewhere in the mid-ring. They're being messy." His eyes flicked to the nearest access hatch. "We need to get to a systems node." "We need to reinforce Dock 3. "Lira," he said, and this time his voice carried none of its usual lazy humor. "We can throw ourselves at the raiders all we want. They'll still have control of our power grid and half our security doors until someone smarter than they are kicks them off. That's me. We need to get to a node." "Is this one of those better idea moments?" she demanded. "Yeah," he said. "Please say yes. I like living." She weighed it. Training screamed at her to head for the docks. Instinct, something older and quieter, said that if someone like Jax, who normally treated danger like a puzzle with a punchline, sounded that serious, she should listen. "Fine," she said. "Node room on deck 4, section F. This way." "After you, officer." The node room was behind 3 locked doors, and one irritated insectoid technician who nearly barred their way until Jax rattled off a string of technical jargon so fast Lira barely caught any of it. "And if you don't want this entire deck rebooting in a plasma flare, you'll let me in right now," he finished. The technician's mandibles clicked in panic. He stepped aside so fast his carapace almost squeaked. Lira shot Jax a look as they stepped through. "Was any of that true?" "Approximately 40%, Jax said, "which statistically is enough for me to be right later." "That's not how statistics work. You and statistics can fight about it later." The node room was a cramped wedge of space humming with low, constant power. Banks of consoles lined the walls, each one displaying a lattice of the station's systems: gravity, life support, comms, dock sensors, external defense grid. Half of them were glitching. "Okay," Jax murmured, his entire demeanor changing as he slid into the central chair. The easy grin stayed, but his eyes sharpened, focus narrowing until the rest of the room might as well not exist. "What do you need?" Lira asked. "Silence," he said, "and for nothing to explode behind me for at least 30 seconds. She took position at the door. His hands moved. Lira had seen good engineers work. Steady, confident, methodical. Jax was none of those things. He attacked the console like it had personally offended him, fingers darting across the interface, hauling up submenus and override codes faster than she could track. "Okay, kids," he murmured, half to himself, half to the system. "What did they do to you?" "Oh, gross. That's not even elegant. These people have no sense of style." "Can you stop them?" Lira asked. "Already on it. They slipped a worm into our grid. Basic, but modified for this station's layout. I'm going to convince it that we're Dock 1 on a very bad day, and then redirect it into the firewall, where it can contemplate its life choices." "That sounds dangerous." "Only if you think about it too hard." She watched his hands. His movements seemed almost too quick, too precise. He wasn't just familiar with this system. He was anticipating it, predicting its responses before they fully resolved on the screen. "I thought you said you'd only been here 2 weeks, she said. "I have. You're working like you helped design this place." He smiled faintly. "Design is a generous word, more like salvaged from 6 different yard sales and stitched together with spite. But yes, I recognize the architecture." "How?" "Because somebody somewhere knows what they're doing," he said. "Here we go." He tapped one final sequence. The flickering status grid on the nearest panel stabilized. The external defense systems, which had been showing a sickly orange, flashed green. "Congratulations," Jack said. "We just got our teeth back." "Defense grid online?" she asked. "Mostly. Someone physically cut the uplink at Dock 1, so turrets there are still blind, but the rest of the ring just woke up and is extremely cranky. I've also locked down every non-essential door leading to the inner decks." "The raiders?" "Trapped in the mid-ring," he said, "for the moment." "Can you talk to control?" "In theory, yes. In practice, their main board is fried, and half their channels are jammed. Someone up there is having a very bad day." He looked at her. "We're going to have to go help." "Good," she said. "Bad," he corrected, "because every raider on this station is between us and them." Lira checked her weapon. "We go through them." He watched her for a second, then nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "I figured you were going to say that." They met the first raider squad 2 corridors later. 4 of them, mismatched armor, patchwork insignias from 3 or 4 different crews stitched onto their jackets. One held a portable breaching charge. Another's weapon still smoked from cutting through an auxiliary access door. They were expecting frightened civilians and maybe a pair of underarmed security guards. They got Lira. She hit the lead raider before he'd finished turning, a low, efficient lunge that put her inside his guard. Her stun baton crackled blue-violet as it connected with his chest plate. The current jumped, the raider spasmed, and he dropped like a sack of ballast. Jax, to his credit, did exactly as he'd said he would. He stayed behind her and threw a spanner. It was an actual spanner, a solid chunk of metal from his belt. It left his hand with surprising velocity, whistled past Lira's shoulder, and collided with the visor of the second raider. The cheap composite cracked. The man yelped, staggering back, blinking blood. "Engineering solution!" Jax shouted. Lira rolled her eyes and kicked the raider's legs out from under him. Blaster fire lit the corridor. Lira dropped behind the nearest bulkhead, pulse surging. Jax dove behind the opposite side, back slamming into the wall. "Two left," Lira said. "Three," Jax corrected. "One's trying to flank from that junction." A raider rounded the corner just as Lira pivoted and fired. The stun bolt caught him center mass. He crumpled, twitching. She ducked back as a shot scorched the edge of the wall where her head had been. "One," Jax amended. "You're welcome." "Stop counting," she said. "It's distracting." "Distracting would be me telling you that you look very attractive when you're about to assault somebody." She shot him a look. "See?" he said. "Distracting. You're welcome." She tossed her baton. It arced through the air, humming. The last raider leaned out to take aim. The baton clipped his weapon arm, discharging in a crackle of light. The man screamed, dropped his rifle, and slammed back into the wall. Lira was on him before he could recover, binding his wrists with practiced efficiency. Jax retrieved her baton from the floor and handed it over. "Here," he said. "Souvenir." "Thank you." "You're terrifying," he added conversationally. "You threw a tool at a man's face." "Yeah," he said, "but only because you were in the way of the other options." She didn't ask what those were. They moved on. The deeper they pushed into the mid-ring, the clearer the pattern became. The raiders weren't here to slaughter indiscriminately. They wanted something. They'd hit the docks, cut a section of the power grid, jammed comms, and targeted specific access corridors. "Dock records," Lira guessed, stepping over a fallen raider. "Maybe at first," Jax said, scanning the next corner with a small handheld device that Lira did not recognize. Its surface shimmered with faint, shifting patterns. But once they realized how slapdash our internal security is, I'm pretty sure they expanded their ambitions. Oh good, someone's trying to brute force the inner airlock codes. Adorable. "You can detect that with whatever that is?" Lira gestured at the device. He tucked it away quickly. "Trade secret. Is it human technology?" "Define human," he said. Lira stopped dead in the corridor. "Jax." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "I am trying," she said very carefully, "to keep us alive. I am trusting you to manage systems I do not fully understand. The least you could do is answer one question honestly. Who are your people?" His gaze flicked away down the corridor. The sirens wailed distantly. Somewhere, something exploded again, muffled by bulkheads. "My people," he said slowly, "are extremely bad at minding their own business from orbit." "Orbit," she repeated. "Civilization hits a certain level of tech, and suddenly everyone wants to play God with telescopes and unmanned probes and non-interference protocols." His tone twisted the last phrase into something bitter. "We're very advanced, sure, very enlightened, very hands-off. We watch everybody else from a nice safe distance and debate whether or not it would be ethical to actually help." Lira stared. "You're from a high-technology polity in the inner sectors." "No," he said. "I'm from above them." She frowned. "That is not... Lira, now is really not the time for my complicated childhood," he said. "Short version? My people have ships that make your fastest courier look like a child's toy. Sensors that can watch a star flicker from 100 light-years away, and enough firepower parked in one hidden system to end any war in a day. We also have rules. Rules that say we don't pick sides. We don't interfere with the natural development of emerging civilizations. We just watch, rationally, objectively, graciously. His mouth tightened. I'm not very good at rules. She swallowed. So you left, she said. I left, he confirmed. And now I fix creaky stations in the middle of nowhere and pretend my tools are just very good black market knockoffs. Her mind spun. The shape of him, his reflexes, his absurd familiarity with their tech, the way he danced through the node room systems. It all shifted, coming into sudden, sharp focus. Does the station know? She asked. Officially, I'm human, he said. Unofficially, well, look at me. I am. His eyes sparked with amusement. Flattered. Try to focus. How advanced are your people? She pressed. You remember that worm in the grid? He said. Ugly, but functional. Yes. My people would have considered that a fire hazard in a first-year programming class. She exhaled once, slowly. Understood, she said. That's it? He asked, surprised. No moral outrage? No, how dare you hide this from us? We could have used your help. I'm very angry, she said. But I can also see that you are here, on the ground, with me, taking blaster fire. That counts more than your people's rules right now. He stared at her for a heartbeat, something like relief flickering across his face. Okay, he said softly. That's good to know. Later, she added, we will discuss your evasive answers. I am absolutely dreading that conversation. Good. A new tremor tore through the station, drawing both their eyes upward. Dock 3? Lira asked. No, Jack said. That was closer to the core. They're going after main control. Then we move, she said. He grinned, sharp again. Now you're speaking my language. Control was a mess. The thick door that normally required 3 different authorization codes was hanging half-melted on its hinges. Smoke crawled along the ceiling in greasy curls. Consoles sparked. Panels hung open like broken ribs. There were bodies on the floor. Security officers, a few raiders. Too many civilians, caught by stray shots or shrapnel. Lira stepped over them with practiced numbness, eyes sweeping for movement. Jax went straight for the central console. Please tell me this is recoverable, he muttered, hands already moving. 2 raiders left, Lira said quietly, scanning behind a toppled holoprojector. 1 wounded, 1 surrendered. My team is securing them now. Good, Jax said, because whoever was leading them already got what they wanted and left. She turned. What? He pointed at the console. Doc logs. Not the current ones, the archival ones. Someone dug 6 years back, pulled a specific block of data, and scrubbed the access trace like a pro. If I hadn't been here, I'd say they were from my neighborhood. What's in those logs? Ships, he said. Names, registry numbers, manifests, port of call chains. Someone was looking for a particular trail. Smugglers, she guessed. Maybe, he said. Or maybe someone my people pissed off. Not the time to speculate. Can you restore comms? Working on it. He slapped an emergency patch into place on the main board. Whoever their tech was, they weren't bad. Sloppy in places, but they knew the right systems to kick. You sound almost impressed. I am impressed, he said. Just also annoyed. Professional pride. She stepped to the cracked viewport that looked out over the docks. Dock 1 was a sealed scar on the ring now, emergency bulkheads clamped tight around the breach. Dock 2 looked intact. Dock 3 showed scorch marks where someone had tried, and failed, to burn their way through. A small, ugly raider ship was already peeling away from the station, engines flaring. It didn't turn its weapons back on them, just ran. They're leaving, Lira said. Good, Jax said. I've got the grid back. If they change their mind, we can turn them into space dust with minimal effort. She watched the ship dwindle, swallowed by the starfield. It bothers me, she said. What does? They came for something specific. They risked a lot for it. People died. Yeah, he said. That's how it usually goes. Everyone's very principled about causes until someone fires a shot. Then it's just mess. You sound like you've seen this before. I have, he said quietly. She looked back at him. He was standing at the console, illuminated by its wavering light. Sweat had dried in dark patches on his shirt. A smear of someone else's blood streaked his forearm, where he'd grabbed a wounded officer to drag him behind cover earlier. His hands moved with casual certainty over the controls, stitching the station back together, subsystem by subsystem. Control to all decks, a voice finally crackled over the internal channel. This is Acting Commander Raal. Hostile forces have retreated. Lockdown remains in effect while we secure the station and account for casualties. Lira exhaled slowly. It's over, she said. For today, Jax replied. Give it a week. Somebody else will decide we're worth visiting. She walked over to him, boots crunching on broken glass. You did well, she said. He glanced at her, surprised. You sound almost impressed. I am impressed, she said, just also annoyed. At? You are still not telling me everything. He hesitated. Some of that's habit, he admitted. You grow up in a place that doesn't want to be noticed. You learn to talk in circles. Stop, she said simply. Stop what? Circling. She gestured to the wounded station beyond the windows. You are here, not up there, watching. Whatever games your people play, you are not playing them. You're down here in the mud with the rest of us. Metal, he corrected automatically. Very expensive metal. She gave him a look. Right, he said. Serious moment. Sorry. Continue glaring. You helped save this station, she said. You risked your life. You do that again, you don't get to hide behind half-truths. He held her gaze for a moment. Lira, he said softly, if my people find out what I'm doing here, I'm going to be in so much trouble. Then we will hide you, she said. He blinked. Wow. That's very generous for someone who threatened to stun me twice this week. I could still stun you, she pointed out. Yeah, he said, but now it would be with affection. She snorted, caught off guard by a laugh that bubbled up without her permission. He brightened at the sound, like he'd just solved a particularly tricky engineering problem. There it is, he said. I knew you had a sense of humor buried under that tactical exterior somewhere. Don't get used to it, she said. Too late, he replied cheerfully. The debrief lasted hours. Statements, reports, footage review, casualty counts. By the time Lira's shift officially ended, the station lights had returned to their normal white-blue hue, and the emergency sirens had faded to a memory. The scars remained, sealed sections, charred walls, makeshift med stations set up in the promenade. She found Jax back in the gym. Of course. He was sitting on the bench this time, not lifting anything, just staring at the ceiling, towel draped around his neck, hands hanging loose between his knees. You are back to making poor life choices, she said by way of greeting. He startled slightly, then relaxed. Lira, you survived paperwork. Barely. Condolences. I'd offer you a drink, but the bar lost half its bottles in the shaking. Tragic. She came to stand beside the bench. For a moment, neither of them spoke. You could leave, she said finally. He looked at her sharply. Your people, she elaborated. You could call them. They could take you away, back to your safe observation posts. Leave the mud to the rest of us. You suggesting I run? He asked. I'm suggesting you have that option, she said. You are not like us, Jax. Your lifespan, your tech, your... She searched for the right word. Context. You do not have to stay on a vulnerable station in a border sector where raiders can cripple us with one good plan. He dropped his gaze back to the floor. Yeah, he said. I know. Will you? He considered it. She watched him. He was infuriating, evasive, reckless, sarcastic to a degree that made her teeth itch. He had also stood at her shoulder, while blaster bolts chewed up the walls on either side of them. He'd grinned in the face of danger, and then, without any fanfare, saved hundreds of lives by outthinking someone else's sabotage. She did not want him to go. She very carefully did not say that. Nah, he said finally. They'd just make me sit in a room full of old men arguing about ethics while we watch some other station get shot at. I'd rather be here. Being shot at yourself, she said dryly. Exactly. He gave her a sideways smile. Besides, who would you have to throw tools at the enemy for you? I don't need someone to throw tools, she said. I need someone to obey orders. That sounds incredibly dull, he said. Tell you what, I'll obey at least 50% of your orders and make the other 50 better. That is not acceptable. It's a very good ratio, statistically. Again, she said, not how statistics work. He shrugged. Good thing you have me around to misuse them for comic effect. She shook her head, but there was no real heat in it. Her gaze drifted over him, the broad shoulders, the easy slouch, the way his hands moved when he talked, sketching shapes in the air as if he were always half a step away from building something. She wondered briefly what it would feel like to lean against him, to see if his warmth felt different, denser, more anchored, the way his presence did. She shut that thought down. He caught her watching and waggled his eyebrows. What? He asked. Is there something on my face? Tell me it's not blood again. That was a whole thing earlier. It's nothing, she said. Lira. He squinted at her. You're doing the thing. What thing? The thing where you look like you're about to say something important and then decide to classify it as a state secret. He leaned back, spreading his arms along the bench. You know you can tell me stuff, right? I'm great with secrets. I'm literally made of them. She snorted. That is exactly why I can't tell you. He sighed dramatically. Tragic, denied by my own mystique. You're ridiculous, she said. And brilliant, he added. Yes, she admitted quietly. And brilliant. He beamed at her, utterly, completely oblivious to the flicker of something that tightened her chest when he smiled like that. Don't worry, officer, he said lightly. I'll keep K-17 in one piece, or at least in several pieces that are still mostly attached. That is not comforting. You'd miss me if I left, he added, far too confident. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and settled on the safest option. You are currently the only engineer I trust to reset the gravity systems without accidentally turning the promenade into a zero-G dance party, she said. He gasped. You say that like it's a bad thing. Do you know how much people would pay for that experience? Jax. Fine, fine. No unsanctioned dance parties. Yet. He hopped up from the bench, rolling his shoulders. So, same time tomorrow? I feel like we've bonded over mutually traumatic events, and I don't want to ruin the momentum. She nodded once. Same time. He gave her a little salute with 2 fingers, then sauntered past her toward the door, humming some tuneless snippet under his breath. Lira watched him go. Her people had a word for this feeling. It translated awkwardly into galactic common, something like dangerous warmth, the steady heat of a fire you knew could burn you if you leaned too close, and yet could not quite bring yourself to step away from. She shook her head, exhaled, and followed him out. The station hummed around them, scarred, patched, still standing. Tomorrow there would be paperwork, repairs, investigations into who had hired the raiders and why. There would be more questions for Jax, more half-answers, more of his infuriating humor. But there would also be this, a strange, unlikely partnership between a straightforward security officer from a low-gravity world and a brilliant, ridiculous engineer from somewhere far above the galactic mess who decided stubbornly to jump down into it anyway. For now, that was enough.
Thanks for watching Echo Forge. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe so the next tale finds you. Share this with someone who loves dark fantasy or twisted sci-fi, and I'll see you in the next world.